Hello, everyone. Welcome to this very first episode of QC Brief. You're seeing Michael Forian there on the screen. And if you're wondering what this is, we're going to go over it. And this is only going to be exclusive just for the length of this provincial campaign here in Quebec that is going to end on October the 3rd. I could not have thought of anyone else to do it with rather than the person that suggested and posed to do it. So, Michael, what's going on, buddy? Thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure. I guess I'm the only one who signed up for the job at this point, but no, it's great. And George, I mean, many of your listeners, many of your viewers know that I've been a familiar face on your podcast. God knows why you keep on inviting me back on. But in any case, we were chit chatting back and forth, and we thought it would be good during this election campaign to give an insider's perspective into what's happening this election campaign, seeing that we've worked on many, both provincially, federally, of course, municipally too. And the other thing too is that there are some good outlets, especially in the Francophone media, that give us that sort of perspective into what is happening with the leaders day after day during this, 30 some odd day campaign, 5 weeks of hitting the ground trying to convince Quebecers to either give you another mandate or put your party in power, or maybe strengthen your opposition status in the National Assembly. But for English-speaking Quebecers like ourselves, there really aren't a lot of outlets that give you the sort of detail that a lot of people are looking for, and that's what I thought would be interesting to give, your viewers, your listeners, that sort of perspective, and hopefully that's what we can do over the course of the next few weeks.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, and you're right. I mean, we're not here to diss the English media, and they're doing a very good job. It's just that it'd be interesting to have this kind of behind the scenes look at things that we've gotten so accustomed to, whether through our own experience or whether with the knowledge that we have or the contacts or everything, the information, all the information that we're getting throughout this campaign, which we're not really suggesting that it's more than the information that the other media is getting. It's just that I think it's interesting because we do bring that little taste, that little flavor because of the experience that we have. Of course, this is going to be on YouTube and on Facebook. We are juggling with the idea of maybe doing these things live, to live stream it. We want to put them first thing out in the morning so that people can have this information of everything that has happened so far until we're recording, and so they can have a little bit of an idea of what to expect during the day or days until the next episode. We're only doing this twice a week. So yeah, I'm super excited.
Yeah.
Do you get all giddy when elections start? Because I'm going to tell you something. I'm not actively involved this time around, or at least not so far. And I don't think I'll get actively involved. I'll choose to put the time in this sort of thing and the car ride conversations, which people can watch as well. That'll be starting up again. I felt that. Okay, the campaign is coming. I wasn't that really excited, but then yesterday, officially, the campaign launched. Something happened. I don't know. I was stuck in front of the TV for hours again, whereas before I was like, whatever, screw it. And I would just turn it off. Does that happen to you? Is that like a switch that just turns on?
I think it happens for anybody who's been involved in like active politics. So we have this weird little bug inside of us that where we just want to, go in and start door knocking for whatever reason, or start doing phone calls, or start getting people wrangling them together for an event or a fundraiser or something of that sort. I've got two close friends who are running for two separate parties. So, my friend Elizabeth Prass running in Darcy-McGee for the Quebec Liberals. My other friend Pascal Derry running for the CAQ over in Repentigny. And so I am going to go and do some, supporting for them, not necessarily for the party, but for them as individuals, because I think it's important to have really strong representation, no matter what political party you come from. Inside of the National Assembly. So I'll do some door knocking for them and help them out where I can, sort of in an ad hoc way. But yeah, and it's really tough not being like thoroughly involved in the campaign process, like as a campaign manager or as a DCOMs, roles that I've taken on, roles that you've taken on before in these types of provincial campaigns. It brings back a lot of good memories and a lot of bad memories too, because believe you me, there are those ups and downs in the campaign. Lessons learned. Sometimes they're pretty tough. But was definitely a little bit interesting seeing Mr. Legault go over to the Lieutenant Governor's office yesterday asking him to drop the writs of the 125 electoral divisions across the province. And then, heading off to his first campaign stops across the Quebec City region. So, it's I know that we miss it, but it's also nice to be, taking sort of the back seat and sort of
Yeah.
like being able to recline and say to
Yeah,
ourselves,
there's
we
something.
get to do some commentary instead,
Yeah, there's
some fun
something.
banter.
There's something good about knowing that you're not working and there's no stress. You don't have to wake up at 4 in the morning and then go to bed at 1 in the morning. You know that you're just watching. You're on the sidelines and you're just taking it in, right? I mean, if you want to do what you're doing and help out, that's fine. It's just that there's little to none stress, which is different. It's I'll tell you one thing. It's different. So let's get started, man. So the campaign officially started yesterday, officially, and I say officially because for those that are listening that are not, too familiar about campaigns, usually within 1, maybe even 2 months before they know that there's a campaign coming, teams already on the ground. They're getting started. They're putting their teams in place. They're looking for their campaign headquarters. There's a lot of preparation. They've already started their door-to-door printing material. There's a lot of things going on. But officially, yesterday, like you said, Premier Legault went to the lieutenant governor's house and officially launched the campaign.
Yeah.
Let's do a little survol, like they say in French. Let's go over the beginning of the campaign for all parties.
For sure.
Yeah, how did
Well,
you follow that?
I mean, yesterday. Let's start with the CAC because Legault, he kicked off his campaign with a major speech, basically underlining his bilan, his record over the course of the past 4 years, trying to motivate Quebecers to go back to the polls. He did it with a great one. I think one of the best backdrops that I've
Oh, I
seen
loved
in a
it.
long time.
Yeah,
The Montmorency Falls, Les Chutes de Montmorency, in back of him with almost all of his 124 other candidates, because of course he's running in L'Assomption
yeah.
outside of Montreal, behind him and stuff. So it looked really good. I think Legault's biggest problem is himself, because albeit that and the thing is, and his greatest advantage is his adversaries because they're quite frankly pretty weak, and it has been fairly weak opposition and weak adversaries over the course of the past 4 years. But the first thing that the media locked into were some comments that he made in regards to referring to Dominique Anglade, the leader of the Quebec Liberal Party, as "cette madame,"
Yeah, yeah.
when he was responding to a journalist in the scrum and talking, and they're asking, well, what do you think about the criticism coming from Dominique Anglade on XYZ issue? He said, "Mais cette madame là," and continued on with his response, and got some comments in the media, got some comments on Twitter, accusations of sexism, misogyny, going back and forth like that. How if he had not made these comments, what would we be talking about right now? We'd be talking about his economic plan, his plan for revitalizing water resources across the province. We'd be talking about anything but this, and we'd be talking probably just about, hey, it's the first 24 hours of the campaign. This is sort of the first day. It's a half day because they obviously get to a late start. But again, this really goes back to Legault being his own worst enemy. Anglade capitalized on this at a rally that she did in the north of Montreal. I believe it was in Marc Tanguay's riding in La Fontaine. So
Yeah.
it to me it looks like if this is the type of rhetoric we're going to be seeing over the course of the campaign, it could be pretty ugly, and especially if we're going to be capitalizing on things like this. And the problem is that we're not talking about the real issues. We're not talking about any campaign policy. We're not talking about platform planks. We're not talking about anything that is going to have a demonstrable effect on you as Quebecers, and
Yeah.
and that's a problem there. And just really quickly on Anglade, we can get to the other parties too. I think that she's going to have a problem with balancing out her candidates and the really, quite frankly, poor candidate recruitment that she and her party did over the course of the past few months. A lot of people watching and listening to this right now will recall that the PLQ put out basically a call to arms. Please come and apply.
Yeah.
It's basically a job application. I come in, be a liberal candidate, said, because we literally have nobody in our ridings that wants to run with us, at least in ridings that are not typically safe. And when he did reach out, and when she did start reaching out, and the party started doing this recruitment, the numbers were pretty abysmal in terms of what I know internally. It wasn't that great in terms of the quality of candidates that were coming about. And this is where Legault is going to be able to capitalize on some of the missteps that these candidates are doing. One in particular in the Eastern Townships, going off and saying that François Legault and the CAC are a bunch of xenophobes and sexists, and then most notably yesterday, which was sort of the counter messaging that we all see in key messaging, that many of the CAC ministers were putting out there. CAC candidates were messaging on social media. The candidate over in I believe Acadie, who was replacing Christine St. Pierre, tweeted out that there hasn't been a decline of the French language over the course of the past few years. There really is nothing that we need to do in terms of having to protect the French language going forward. And of course, Dominique Anglade already struggling in the polls in terms of her, ability to tap into the francophone electorate. This is not going to do her any better, and this
Yeah.
is not going to do her well going forward. So.
I just want to go back to what you're saying about the beginning of the campaign, because you're right. I mean, do we really need to focus on what Legault said instead of what he's proposing during the campaign? The answer is no. But you know very well, as well as I do, that these little words, they matter, right? Because each party is looking for the slightest little thing to latch on to bring a cloud or anything negative, so that it can potentially take up maybe 2-3 days of your campaign, kind of correcting yourself. Let's remember in 2018, that was what then Premier Philippe Couillard had said in a radio interview about being able to do your groceries for $70 a week. It was taken out of context, because if you had heard the entire interview, the guy was explaining that there were some families that unfortunately are in a position where they have to spend that $70, and that destroyed his entire campaign. I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem. Of course, it's the beginning of the campaign. I don't think Legault wanted to start off on that note, but it does shed a little bit of a negative light on his start of the campaign, where you wanted to kind of launch on a positive note, and instead the stuff coming out in the media is you calling Anglade, that lady. There's this condescending tone and all that stuff.
Which will come back to haunt him. I mean, and that's the problem. It's these unforced errors. It's these are the real problems that we're seeing right now. Instead of reassuring the electorate that you can, have a second mandate and you deserve a second mandate, you're having to deal with those errors on the campaign, tripping over yourself. The voters want to see the political parties and the candidates across Quebec come out of the shadows. They want them to rediscover, what this political party is, and discover a leader. And I think that's a problem that, people like Dominique Anglade, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, leader of the Parti Québécois, these are two relatively new political players in terms of taking the leadership of their respective parties. People don't know who they are. The Quebec electorate doesn't know who they are. Yes, us as people who've worked in this industry for quite some time, and people that like to observe it know who they are. But the vast majority of Quebecers, if you ask them who Dominique Anglade
Oh yeah, 100%.
Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, who they are, good luck.
Oh no, 100%, 100%. You know what I always find interesting whenever campaigns start, to see where they choose to launch their campaign, and that's very strategic, right? Because obviously Legault needs to protect the region of Quebec. It makes sense that he launched it in Quebec, but at the same time, in the region of Quebec, you had Éric Duhem that was launching his own campaign, and we know that these guys have been eyeing a couple ridings in that region: Beau-Sud, Beauce-Nord, Chute de la Chaudière, Chauveau, where Éric Duhem, like that whole strip. That goes all the way from Chauveau all the way down to Beau-Sud, that whole corridor. They've been eyeing that one. I know that Éric Duhem wants to get maybe 4 or 5 seats in that region. So I always found that interesting. Of course, Dominique Anglade in Montreal, she wants to defend that base. And the Parti Québécois in Montreal as well. I mean, that I found strange. I mean, I don't know if they had any other choice. I mean, they went to the leader's riding. He's running in Camille Lorrain, which was the old riding of Makakoto.
The Bourget.
The Bourget riding.
Yeah.
And strategically, again, Quebec Solidaire, they did their announcement in Sherbrooke. That's something that they really, really want to defend because there's a risk that they lose those ridings that they won last campaign that are outside of Montreal. So we're talking about Sherbrooke. We're talking about the two ridings they won in the region of Quebec, so Tachereau and Jean Lesage.
Yeah.
Those are in danger. So I always find that interesting how they strategically launch their campaign and which riding they decide to do it in.
It sends a message. It sends a message to the voters in those ridings there that, we care about you and we desperately want your vote come election day. I think that Eric Duhem is taking, a strategic point out of the Harper 2015 playbook, where the Harper government at the time, the Harper campaign, looking for another mandate, which they didn't get. Obviously, they were targeting that 200-kilometer strip, like you mentioned, north and south of Quebec City,
Yeah.
and that was we knew because I was helping the Conservatives back then, but they knew at the time that that was the sweet spot in terms of where they could pick up votes, and they did, albeit that Trudeau, by and large, wiped Quebec pretty clean, and obviously won a majority government with seats across Canada. The Conservatives were able to pick up quite a few votes, quite a few seats rather, in the Quebec City region. So we know that that's fruitful. It's plentiful for. It's a good target for Eric Duhem. I think the problem that he's going to have is, again, going back to candidate recruitment, and nobody of quality, nobody of substance really
Yeah.
wants to be a candidate for anybody outside of the CAC, because
Yeah, that's interesting, and he's carrying the whole thing on his shoulders right now. He is the voice, the face, and everything around the Conservative Party of Canada. He's done a tremendous job. I think we need to highlight that compared to where the Conservative Party of Quebec was all these years, where it was almost non-existent, to bringing up the membership to over 50,000 and the
yeah.
fundraising. Like, I mean, the guy has done an incredible job. He took advantage of that whole wave of disappointment that came and throughout the campaign, when people didn't want restrictions, they didn't want lockdowns. Like, he took advantage of that sentiment, and he brought it into, he gave it a political voice, and it propelled him to where he is now. I honestly think that he's really underestimated. And again, it goes back to what you're saying. People aren't really aware of what's happening. They don't know who the candidates are. They're going to follow what's mainstream and what
Yeah.
what picks up in the news, and he's done a fantastic job at that. I think he's really underestimated. Just the last week or so, people have been kind of tuning in to what Eric Duhem has been doing, and I found very interesting his launch yesterday, and he pretty much put everything straight up. He said, we were first to launch, we were first to come out with our campaign slogan, we were first to get our 125 candidates. He is beating everyone to the start. Everyone.
But, but
Now, are his candidates of any quality? I mean, that's questionable. Maybe I don't know who he went and found just to say that he has all candidates. That's a whole other story. We'll find out obviously more during the campaign. But you got to give it to the guy. His organization is on point.
But already we know quite a few of his candidates have been on the ground. I mean, it takes time to, of course, get to 125 candidates. He's had some of them for months. And so already journalists have been able to do investigations into the background of many of these candidates where
Yeah.
they're finding online. And I mean, we know this. It's the dirt squad, right?
Yeah.
Every political party, every major news agency, that is established in an area where there's an election going on, they have a team of researchers going about and trying to dig up a good news story about a candidate that said XYZ back 10, 15 years ago. And look what's happening now.
Yeah, they want to derail.
With the advent of social media, it's getting even easier. And so, CBC did a great investigation into some of the candidates there, where they talked about, that they believe that the World Economic Forum is controlling the world. They believe that the sanitary measures that are being put in regards to the pandemic were not saving lives. They believe that vaccines are going to kill you. So these are they're candidates that are espousing this. And of course, there's all what I would say is just as bad or even worse is some of the racist comments that are coming out too, from his candidates, where they're making accusations against, calling Chinese people terrible terms because they're blaming them for COVID-19 and the virus there. So you see that this is a reflection, and I always say that political parties are a reflection of human behavior. Unfortunately, Eric Duhem's PCQ has brought out the worst of people.
Yeah.
And then we bring it back to the angle, because a lot of people that are watching this right now, we want to speak about the how is this going to affect English speaking people? A lot of Anglophones are turning towards the PCQ and saying maybe this is an option for me. Maybe I've voted Liberal my entire life, or and I don't see myself voting for the CAC because of their issues. I could see with Bill 96 how maybe there's a way for some Anglophones to reconcile their support towards the PCQ because of their nuanced position there. But when it comes to Bill 21, they support Bill 21. They support, and this is something that for diverse Quebecers, for multicultural Quebecers, and the English speaking community alike, which those two groups go hand in hand. I don't see how an English speaking Quebecer who is friends with a diverse community of individuals in Montreal could vote for the PCQ, knowing their stance on Bill 21 and then being pro Bill 21. So for me, it's going to be difficult to see him pick up any seats, obviously, in the greater Montreal area or in the eastern townships where we find significant Anglophone population. But even in Quebec City, I don't know if Eric Duhem is going to get even one seat. The polls don't show it right now. And I think maybe it would be good for us to segue into polls at this point.
Yeah, we can get into the polls. Before we get there, though, just on the topic of the candidates, I do want to point out that the first time, at least that I can remember, that a party like the Liberal Party has started an election campaign without a full slate of 125 candidates. It's the first time. And it goes back to what you were saying about the Liberal Party not being the same party that it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago. That famous election machine that they would just turn on and everything was just ready to go is really gone. It's not even there.
Non-existent.
I mean, of all the parties, it is the only one that hasn't completed 125 candidates. It is unheard of.
Yeah. And I mean the abysmal fundraising records. They cannot fundraise to save their life at this point. They've lost. People are, the francophone community is disenchanted with Dominique Anglade because they feel that she's not promoting the French language. The anglophone community is disenchanted with her because they feel that she's not protecting their minority rights. She's lost her base. She's lost the voters that she's trying to go after. The Quebec Liberal Party has lost the authenticity factor. No one looks at them as being a true, real party, and that's ironic because, of course, the emphasis on voter vrai, vote real, which is their slogan for the campaign, and no one actually can trust them when it comes to that.
We'll see how that turns up. Keep in mind, everyone listening or watching, we're going to be talking about platforms. Obviously, I mean, as we go along, each party is going to be making announcements, so we're going to get into the platforms much more in detail in the days and weeks to come. So we're not really going to focus on that right now. Let's go to the polls because it's important what you were saying about Eric Duhem. There was a poll that came out. It was a Léger poll that came out last Friday. I think it's the most recent one that actually put the Quebec Conservative Party as a second, I think, or first in the region of Quebec. Or hold on, let me just go get it.
Yeah, so they're second at this point here in the region of Quebec. But let's just start off with the poll numbers overall. CAC 42, Liberals 17, Quebec Solidaire 15, the PCQ 14, and the PQ at 9 across the board. When you break that down even more in terms of, because poll numbers only tell you so much. They don't tell you, they give you a snapshot as to what the electorate is thinking across the board, and then you can look at regional breakdowns. But when you actually look at what this will translate into seats, because seat projections I find are a lot more important. They're also a lot more difficult to calculate, but they're a lot more important to have a better understanding and that better snapshot of what's happening in the election. So if you take the current polls that have been aggregated by Philippe Fournier, who's great at l'actualité, has done a lot of commentary in Anglophone media, so you probably have seen him on CTV News. But right now, with those current projections, the CAC is going to be winning a mandate of 99 seats, which is unheard of. This has never been done before in Quebec history. The POQ would go down to 17 seats. Quebec Solidaire would go down to 8. The PQ would go down to 1, and the PCQ would fail to gain a seat in the legislature.
Interesting. We'll see how that evolves. I think, again, like what I was telling you before, I think they're underestimating the Conservative Party. It wouldn't shock me if the Conservatives managed to actually get a seat and maybe even a second seat. But I don't think they would get more than that. But I think they're gonna break into the House. The CAC. I would place them around 100 as well. This is this is huge. I mean, the last time I think it's happened before, it was Burasa in the 70s that got like, I don't know, 103 seats or something out of 115 at the time that the National Assembly had, which was completely unheard of, and I think it's still probably the record. But
Yeah.
um,
But this is unprecedented in modern history.
well, yeah,
We've
yeah,
never
yeah.
seen this in modern political history, the past 10, 15, 20 years. No party has been able to capitalize like this.
I want to get to to one aspect of that Leger poll that a lot of the PQ people were commenting on, because obviously they have to find the positive thing, right?
Right.
The positive spin. They're like, look, the PQ is second, the Quebecers' second choice. When Quebecers were polled, it's the PQ that comes in as the second choice to the CAC. Let's just clarify one thing. The reason that the CAC won is because they went in large portion and they got a lot of the PQ electorates to elect them. So naturally, when you ask the majority of the Quebecers which one would be your second choice, of course it would be the PQ, because that's who is voting for the CAC to begin with. So there's a direct association. I don't think people are going to be like, I'll forget about the CAC. My second choice will be PQ, to give the PQ any importance in this campaign, because they already left the PQ to go to the CAC. So I don't think that would be switching anytime soon. I think it's a useless poll, to be honest with you. But I mean, I just find it funny how the PQ kind of stuck to that. It's the only thing they have going for them. It's the only positive thing. Other than that, they're dead last. Also interesting poll was the choice for favorite premier of Quebec. And again, there, Éric Duhem comes in second.
Yeah. Yeah,
PQ,
because I think
POQ
that
last.
he's the only leader that has been getting the media attention. He's the great advantage of Duhem is the fact that he's the only person with that messaging. He's the only person who has had a counter message that has been popular, that has picked up
Yeah.
steam. He's the only one talking about immigration the way that he is. He's the only one talking about sanitary measures the way that he is. He's the only one that is giving a counterbalance to the general across the board messaging that you've seen from the four other major parties, where they've all been on board in regards to vaccination. They've all been on board in regards to sanitary measures. They've all have had a very steady line across the board when it has come to the COVID-19 pandemic. So he's the only one that's offering an alternative. So it doesn't surprise me at all to see that some people are saying, you know what, I'm looking at Eric Duhem. I like his personality. I know him from Quebec City as a shock jock radio host. Which a lot of his adversaries are trying to play off against him. But to be very frank, that's how he gained his popularity. That's how he gained his fame and transitioned into the political role that he is in right now.
The one interesting thing about the poll that came out is Quebec Solidaire being number one as the official opposition. Who do you think is going to be the best opposition? And that's Quebec Solidaire. Here's what's interesting about Quebec Solidaire. I think they know that they can never govern. Obviously, their message throughout the campaign is that they are the best fit to govern. That's every party's message. But one thing I think that they will focus on is that they are the true challenge to the government. I don't know if you remember in 2018, they came out. The initial message that came out right after the campaign is that we are going to be the official opposition in Quebec City, and everyone was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And at that point, there weren't all seats hadn't been counted yet. It wasn't sure if it was going to be them or the PQ that was in second opposition. So there's a little bit of a conflict there. But finally, they're the second opposition. And throughout this entire mandate, they have acted that they are the official opposition. We are the true challenge to the government and to Legault. And this is reflected in the polls. And I think that this is going to help them, at least in their base, to convince the people, look, this is the work that we've been doing. We went from a nothing party in 2008 when they got their first guy, Amir Kadir, in the House, to being recognized as the official challenger, as the official opposition in Parliament. I'm not so sure how that's going to reflect in the numbers, because I think both Quebec Solidaire and the Liberal Party are going to lose seats on the 3rd of October. But
it's a given.
Yeah, but I think it's definitely a plus for them to kind of bounce on and to kind of campaign on.
Yeah. Just as we wrap it up, George, I want to let people know where the leaders are going to be in and around today and what they're going to be announcing. Dominique Anglade is currently in Quebec City, making an announcement live right now as we speak, pledging to put an extra $5,000 a year into families' wallets. She says that Quebecers need financial breathing room. And so this is part of her wallet plan, as she's calling it. So in any case, announcement going on right there. François Legault is going to be releasing this morning his plan on how to lower taxes for Quebecers. He's spoken about this. A lot of other political parties have spoken about their plans on wanting to reduce taxes across the board for Quebecers, given high inflation, recovering from COVID. Families are struggling, the middle class is struggling, and he's making a particular effort in terms of signaling that he wants to focus on Quebec's middle class. So that's going to be important on that front there. And then finally, in terms of the current stuff that we know right now about Quebec Solidaire, we see that they're going to be doing a press conference later this morning in Montreal, where they're going to be speaking about their agenda on health in terms of bonifying more resources towards the health sector for nurses, doctors. They're really going to be presenting their policy platform on healthcare overall, which they're hoping that they can stick to the CAC and the PLQ as they try to make advances into, I would say, QS territory, or seats where they could be. Which are traditionally their own. Quebec Solidaire is looking also to pick up seats. Let's not forget in Saint-Henri-Sainte-Anne, Maurice Richard, Maurice Richard, formerly held by Marie Montpetit, who was kicked out of the Liberal caucus earlier this year. Saint-Henri-Sainte-Anne, the current seat of Dominique Anglade. So in any case, lots of advancements there, potential pickups from Quebec Solidaire on that front there. Montreal is going to be a one to watch between those CAC versus PLQ versus QS battleground races.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting, and as we move forward in the coming days and stuff, we're going to have a lot more stuff to talk about the particular ridings and the races that are going to be very close. Let's end this the tip of the hat, the wag of the finger from yesterday's launch.
Wag of the finger to François Legault, because again, his comments like "cette madame," I think that this is going to really hurt him across the board in terms of trying to tap into more female voters who are not going to, necessarily be on board with, let's say more of a conservative-esque party like the CAQ. I remember the CAQ is very much a coalition. About a third of their voter base are federal liberals, a third are bloquists, and a third are conservatives. So they're still very much, partly a conservative party. And I think comments like that could be labeled as, again, sexist, misogynistic. It's going to really hurt him. But I'm also going to give him my tip of the hat, because I do feel that he looks like the man, l'homme de la situation. He looks like he's in charge. He looks like he's demonstrating to Quebecers that he deserves a second mandate. He has a full slate of candidates. The PLQ is straggling behind. The other parties, are failing to really get a lot of media attention right now. And I think with the backdrop of the Montmorency Falls, I think with the great digital media that his team has been able to tap into, on Instagram, on Twitter, the social media vibe and the presence that he's showing on there is working very well for him. So he gets both my wag of the finger and my tip of the hat. We'll see if that's the case come Thursday for our next episode.
I'll agree with you with the wag of the finger. The tip of the hat for me, I'll give it to Éric Duhaime. I think it's a great launch for him. It's a great beginning. He started last week, with his bus and close to 1,000 people. He's attracting huge crowds. He's getting a very good start in this campaign. I'm curious to see how it's going to go for him.
Totally.
All right, Michael, we'll end it here, guys. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to YouTube. Follow us on Facebook if you want. We're going to have these every Monday, every Thursday, all the way until the 3rd of October. Thank you for listening, and we'll keep you posted if ever we're going to go to a live stream. We're not sure yet, but we're juggling with the idea. But in any case, until the next episode, enjoy your day. Have fun. Thanks, Mike.
Ciao, George.